Today, we are going to be talking about vocabulary strategies in physical education, and the certain vocabulary strategy that we are going to be focusing on today is the Frayer Model. But before we get into what the Frayer Model is, we're going to be talking about what is the strategy for, anyways. So, we would be using this for middle school, so sixth to eighth grade physical education classrooms. And the certain text that I'm specifically using is the Physical Education Activity Handbook, and we're going to be talking about the Frayer Model strategy. This is also called the Vocabulary Square. The Vocabulary Square is best known by the title of Frayer Model, adapted by Dorothy Frayer and her colleagues at the University of Wisconsin. The vocabulary square, which is a square broken down into 4 quadrants, as you can see here in this picture. These both support vocabulary learning by having students work through related characteristics, examples, and non-examples of a given word. One of the tool's greatest strengths is its adaptability. And while the target concept goes in the middle oval of the Frayer, the other sections in the word can include definitions, a paraphrase, examples, characteristics of the term, related words like in the word families, and illustration. Really anything that is going to help the student understand and memorize this word. The 4th quadrant usually includes an illustration, and the authors of the Frayer Model said that through their years of teaching, illustrations are the most important components to include, as it creates a visual and it supports multiple pathways of encoding information in the brain. And we have another example right here, and this is for cardiovascular endurance. So we have the definition, some examples of what cardiovascular endurance is, a personal paraphrase, and a personal paraphrase is really just a definition for the individual student, and of course the illustration. I became familiar with this strategy through textbooks, but mainly and this is ironic, but Googling what is a good study technique. Using a photo and several different ways to remember a term are so important for long-term knowledge, and the key term here is using multiple different things. And so maybe instead of using examples for this one, you can use characteristics of the term. I really enjoy these Frayer models because they are so individualized for a student's needs. The rationale behind a Frayer model is that it is a graphic organizer that helps students determine or clarify the meaning of vocabulary words encountered while listening, reading, and viewing text. It is used before reading to activate background knowledge, during reading to monitor vocabulary, or after reading to assess vocabulary. This strategy supports students' acquisition of new words and using resource materials by providing students with a structure to examine words for their definitions, characteristics, examples, and non-examples. In class, I would most likely have a Google Classroom as a place to post any documents my students would need. Since this is a physical education classroom, it's not like we would have too much. So I would have, any documents that they might need, including Frayer models that are already filled out. I would also use these empty Frayer models for students to fill out. After every unit, I would hand out empty sheets of these Frayer models and assign 5 to 10 vocab words for students to do. The amount will be varying based off of the unit, but anywhere from probably 5 to 10. And having students create their own Frayer models is a form of assessment on its own, just to see how students visualize and understand different vocabulary words. But 3 different ways that we could use Frayer models in assessment is personally just by me. If maybe instead of doing this as homework, I could just observe my students creating and working together in groups and conferencing with small groups or individual students, just asking them what works best for them. I can also do student journaling. In a PE class, I probably wouldn't do this as much, but if I was in a health side of PE class, then I think this would be super important. And of course, just handing out those blank sheets for students to use. That is all that I have today. Using Frayer models are extremely important and an extremely innovative way to allow students to memorize and learn new vocabulary words, especially in physical education.